Welcome back to another episode of Podward State. I'm one of your hosts, Sam Brungo, joined by my friend Grace Cunningham. Grace, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. We have guest hosts sitting in for our interview today. We got Charlie Pegler sitting in for his brother Will, who's on the IR right now. Chuck, how's it going, bud?
It's going pretty well. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Pretty good.
Good.
How you feeling? You ready?
I'm all right. Am I ready? I'm excited. I'm very excited to talk to AQ a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, we already did it, so it's recorded.
Got me.
Well, when I said it, I set you up there. We, like you said, we got AQ Shipley, Penn State Letterman Super Bowl champion. Not at Penn State, obviously. On the Buccaneers. Current coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, offensive assistant. Really cool to talk to him. I enjoyed that conversation. What do you guys think?
Yeah, he was cool. I was talking to him.
Sound a little bit like our boy Jordy over here.
Yeah.
Jordy, you want to come in here and tell us what podcast he hosts? Jordy's our resident Yinzer, sort of.
Okay, he hosts the show That's Hockey Talk for Pat McAfee and the boys.
Yep, host with PMI. He hosts That's Hockey Talk. You can catch that on all streaming platforms. I'm going to step aside here, and so is Charlie, and we're going to get sound technician Jordan Mansberger. Jordy's going to come in here, and he's going to, with Grace, talk about some headlines with Shannon Stutz.
All right, let's get into some headlines here. Shannon, hit me with one.
Penn State is going to host a town hall addressing sexual misconduct on November 8th. Penn State recently announced that it will host a virtual town hall at 4 p.m. on Monday, November 8th to share updates and hear from the community about the university's ongoing efforts to address sexual misconduct on campus. It's mainly geared towards students, but it'll feature other university employees and leaders from student organizations, and Penn State's president, Eric Barron, will host the event.
That's good. I think there's been like 16.
I think it's super important that Penn State finally is doing something about this. This year,
it's crazy.
In my 4 years at Penn State, this year has been like embarrassingly just. I get a text every day about a what do they call them?
Like
forcible sex offense.
Timely warnings.
But do you think this is
awful? It's the worst.
Do you think this is how it always has been, but now people are just coming forward?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say too. I'm not sure.
Well, if that's
I mean, it's still they're still
disappointing,
happening.
but, like it's better that people are coming forward, but I would like to
all around
not
is just
have
bad.
this be a thing anymore. So whatever Penn State can do to fix that, I think town hall is a good start.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, how long has it been since, like, the protest? Like, how many weeks ago was that? Like, 2 weeks?
Oh, I don't remember.
Yeah, I think 2, 3.
2.
Former Penn State lacrosse player Chris Hogan is retiring from the NFL. Two-time Super Bowl champion, wide receiver, and former Penn State lacrosse star Chris Hogan retired from the NFL on Saturday. Hogan played 3 seasons of collegiate lacrosse with the Nittany Lions from 2007 to 2009. And following his time at Penn State, Hogan played 1 season of collegiate football with Monmouth. Hogan played for many different teams, with his most successful season being with the New England Patriots, and he finishes off his career with the New Orleans Saints.
Do you think that Chris Hogan maybe... I mean, I've seen, like, some talk about it to where he might consider going into the PLL a little bit. I think it would be really hard, like, at this stage in his career, especially after, like, playing professional football where he's gotten very beat up over the years. But I think it would be cool to see him try to make a run at the PLL.
Chris Hogan's in the PLL.
I was going to say, he is.
Wait,
yeah.
Oh, wait, he got...
He was in the PLL and then went back to the NFL.
I thought I heard something about that.
Thon announced its 2022 theme, Spark Endless Light. Following a long-standing tradition, Thon's executive committee announced the theme for Thon 2022 before the Penn State homecoming parade kicked off Friday night, and it is Spark Endless Light.
Nice.
I think that's cute.
For the kids.
FTK.
$26 million gift is among Penn State's largest donations ever. So thanks to a new $26 million gift, longtime philanthropists and Penn State volunteers Peter and Ann Tombros now rank among the university's top 5 all-time donors. The Tombros new donation will aid 2 positions within the Penn State community. The first, the Peter and Ann Tombros Dean Chair, will provide multi-use for the Penn State College of Agricultural Sciences, and the second position will help fund the men's basketball team. Head coach Micah Shrewsbury will be able to fund expenses for student athletes. The endowment money will also support a variety of other groups and positions.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Shout out to Shrews. We got another headline with him coming in.
Yeah, now we got Stutz, the editor, coming on. Stutz, what headline we got?
So Penn State Hoops is to host Shrews Slamma-Jamma on October 28th. To promote student excitement for the start of the season, head coach Micah Shrewsbury, along with the men's basketball program, is hosting a Slamma-Jamma event at 6 p.m. on Thursday, October 28th at the East Hall's basketball courts. The event will give Penn State fans and students the opportunity to meet Coach Shrewsbury along with other members of the team. Those in attendance will also get to enjoy free food and enter some contests to win prizes, too.
That's like so weird to me.
I think the University of Houston right now should be a little bit mad that they're kind of ripping off Phi Slamma-Jamma, but should be fun.
I think it's cool because me and Charlie live there, so
You're
just look
gonna
out the window.
participate?
Are you going to participate?
Probably not. Walk by.
So Penn State University Health Services will offer 2 additional flu shot clinics for students next month in the hub. The first clinic will be held on Monday, November 8th in Alumni Hall, while the second clinic will follow on Tuesday, November 9th in Heritage Hall. Both clinics will run from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Appointments must be scheduled through MyUHS, as walk-ins won't be accepted this year.
That's good.
Yeah,
they're
nice.
probably like full again by the time we're saying this. But
Yeah, I was going to say I kind of want to schedule one, but
do it at CVS downtown.
okay.
Get your flu shot, get your vaccine, donate some blood, save a life.
A Penn State student group will host controversial alt-right political commentator Milo Yiannopoulos for a discussion about free speech, faith, conversion therapy, hairstyle, and more on Wednesday, November 3rd in 101 Thomas Building. Milo's lecture is organized by Uncensored America, a student organization founded at Penn State in 2020 that is dedicated to fighting for freedom of speech. Although it was announced just days ago, the event has already sparked some controversy among students due to Milo's past comments. The event's tagline, "Pray the Gay Away," has caught flack too. There is currently a petition urging Penn State to uninvite Milo from campus and currently has almost 9,000 signatures. WTF.
Yeah, it's really weird. I don't really get it.
All right, so here's the deal with this guy. This pisses me off so much. I was going to say I hate this guy, but I don't want to promote hate on our show. I feel like we do a pretty good job of that, right?
Yeah.
Staying
He's
positive. And
not
this
a
guy,
friend of the
no,
show, to say
this
the
guy is
least.
not a friend of the show. This guy is not a friend of ours. We do not want to promote anything that he does or stands for. We are pro LGBTQ plus community. We denounce everything that this guy says. I hate it. If there's a protest outside of the Thomas Building, and I don't normally get upset about stuff this easily, but like I will be at that protest because I do not want this guy in my town or in my university. I can't stand this guy, Milo Hippopotamus.
Is Penn State allowed to not have him come?
Yeah.
They are?
I
No, I thought it was.
No,
They
it's like
claim
the
something-
organization.
Penn State in their statement, I think, claims something about like there's a constitutional right for
Like,
it, but
I
like they have
assumed-
every right. As
I
a
assumed
university
that they
to,
like
prevent him
weren't
from
allowed
coming.
to because why would they? I don't
I
get why he's
I
coming.
read on Twitter that West Virginia, he was supposed to speak there last year, and they did like prevent him from
What?
coming. Yeah.
Oh,
Another thing, this just goes towards President Barron and his willingness to spark any sort of controversy, whether it's the vaccine, whether it's standing up against sexual assault violence, or this. Like, this is just hate speech, and hate speech is not free speech. President Barron needs to step up and do his damn job, or else someone's going to do it for him.
Yeah, no, like he married his husband, but then he recently demoted his husband to his housemate.
wait,
Yeah,
what?
he said in
Yeah.
that same statement that he's like, I demoted my husband to housemate, but I can still like afford to keep him in luxury clothing and cars, so
And,
it could
like-
be worse for him.
Yeah, and give him a new Porsche
Like-
every year.
Yeah. Just
That's kind of just
what the
sad.
You know, he's banned from countries.
From countries?
Yeah, they won't let him get, like, so many countries won't let him get his visa.
Oh my god.
So, Penn State Center for Sexual and Gender Diversity will host a Love is Louder event next week in opposition to an event featuring political speaker Milo Yiannopoulos. The event will take place from 6 to 10 p.m. on Wednesday, November 3rd in the Hub's Heritage Hall. According to the center's Instagram post, it will feature music, food, and activities to inspire love and community within the Penn State student body. That's nice.
That was nice.
Yeah.
hopefully there'll be a lot more people at that one than the other one.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that
I don't think
really
so,
overshadows Milo's event.
I think it.
Oh,
will.
I think it will.
Yeah.
I can't really imagine anyone going to Milo's, but I've seen like a lot of stuff like on social media.
You know there will
like,
be people
I
that
think
go
a lot
to
of
it.
people
sell
will go
out
to that one.
Milo's tickets, like because they're free. Like general admission is free, so like keep like reserving them, and then, you know.
Oh.
Then he shows up and no one's there actually like that. Anyways, thank you to Jordy for stepping in for some headlines, even though I still stole your mic half of the time. Anyways, we're going to get into a conversation here with Penn State Letterman AQ Shipley after the break. Enjoy. Joining us now, we have former Penn State offensive lineman, NFL journeyman, Super Bowl champion, AQ Shipley. AQ, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. All right, so we're just going to start out a little bit, talk about the beginning of your football career. You know, growing up in Pittsburgh area, was Penn State football always like a goal for you? And what was your recruiting journey like?
I mean, I think I grew up watching Penn State. I grew up watching Ohio State, grew up watching Michigan, kind of that whole, you know, little Big Ten region, right? Notre Dame, I think I was a big fan of a little bit. And, you know, grew up watching it, loved the sport. Never really, I mean, I guess it was always a goal, never really considered it, I guess, at a young age. And then, you know, 9th grade, 10th grade rolls around, and I had a huge year as a freshman in high school. And I started hearing from schools and got a couple scholarship offers after my freshman year. And I was like, wait, this is actually gonna be a thing. So, yeah, that's kind of where it went. And then by the end of my junior year, I want to say I had something like 50 something offers, and took my visits: Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, and ultimately wanted to stay close to home. Had a great relationship with Tom Bradley, who recruited me. Had a great relationship with Larry Johnson, who recruited me. And, you know, they recruited me to play defense. And that was kind of one of the only schools that offered me to play defense. That was a major key in me choosing Penn State. And then a year and a half in, they moved me to offense, just like every other school was interested in me. So it was interesting, but it all worked out in the end.
What was it like to play for Joe Paterno?
Oh, I love Joe. Loved everything about that guy. I loved just kind of the way he operated, everything he did. Had a purpose, had a reason. It was interesting. I mean, there's so many, countless stories I could tell about just kind of what that man meant to me as a person, as a coach. And there were so many times, I mean, just like one little thing, right? Like there's so many times where, you know, I think it was, it had been our senior year. I think we were maybe 6-0, feeling real good about ourselves, and getting ready. I think we were getting ready to play Ohio State, which was a big game that we ended up winning and putting us in pretty good position. And he walked out of practice on like a Wednesday. He just walked out. He started screaming and yelling at a bunch of things, and walked out and told us to finish practice on our own, whatever. We weren't focused, this, that, and the other. And came to find out, you know, a couple weeks later, I mean, he had that planned like for weeks, like that if we were rolling, that like the Wednesday of Ohio State, he was going to just walk out of practice just to see what kind of leadership we had. See, and then we did, right? And we had a good group, and we ended up like finishing practice, like running our own practice as a group. And, you know, then we go into Ohio State and beat them, and, you know, end up having a pretty good year that year and going to the Rose Bowl. But he always had like a rhyme or reason with kind of everything he did. And that, I mean, there was a million stories I could look back on about that guy, but I mean, I love the way he operated as a person, as a coach.
How much of a influence did Joe have on you picking Penn State?
Huge. I mean, huge. I mean, he was a legend in the college football world. He was a juggernaut, right? I mean, he was a giant in that world, and, you know, there was an aura about him, right? And it was like you go visit Penn State. I think my first game was that Penn State Nebraska game, where I think Zamitis picked off one and took it back for a touchdown. Place goes crazy. And Larry Johnson, that was, I think, Larry Johnson's big year. And that was kind of my first visit. And I think my first time kind of just being around him, I'm like, man, this guy, just the presence, like what this guy has seen, what this guy is about, what he stands for. You know, I mean, it rubbed off in the values. I mean, it went beyond myself, right? It went to the parents, it went to the siblings. Everybody saw kind of just his the values and the core standards that he stood for, and you knew that you were going to a place that was going to, you know, have meaning about who you were as a person long after you were done playing football. And that was a big piece that you know, I really took to heart.
Yeah, so when did you realize you were probably going to get drafted and that your NFL dreams were really a reality?
It's a great question. You know, that's a long goal that I think every kid has, right? You dream of playing on Sundays, and you hope to get drafted, right? You hope to put yourself in a position where you get that opportunity. And for me, it was kind of, I think, my sophomore year where, you know, I finished that year and I'd played against the likes of the AJ Hawks and, you know, a lot of big time players. I think that year was sophomore year. I guess we played Tennessee in a bowl game. Turk McBride got drafted. Jared Mayo got drafted. Eric Berry, I think, went on to get drafted. So these were all guys, you know, that I played against on that defensive line in Tennessee, you know, the Ohio States, the Michigans, the Lamar Woodleys, the Alan Branches of the world. Those guys all got drafted that year. David Harris was a linebacker on that Michigan team. And, you know, you start seeing all these guys get drafted, and I'm like, man, I played pretty good against those guys, right? And, you know, held my own, and if not more, right? So, you know, as a sophomore, I'm like, okay, this thing, I got a real shot. In my junior year, I make first team all conference against some other really good players that end up going on and getting drafted. And my senior year, you know, I got preseason award, preseason All-American. I got all that stuff kind of rolling. I'm like, okay, this has a real chance. You know, if I just go out and do what I'm supposed to do, and ended up having a heck of a year my senior year. And I knew I was going to have a chance. But I mean, I didn't know what round, obviously. You know, my whole thing was, thought it was going to be a lot higher in terms of the draft, in terms of the way I played. You know, height and arm length and some other things kind of held me back a little bit on that end. But my dad just kind of always said, hey, listen, you just got to get in. Once you get your opportunity, you'll be fine. And that's what happened. I ended up playing 12 years.
So being from Pittsburgh, and I'm a big Pittsburgh fan. My family's all from Pittsburgh. I used to live in Pittsburgh for a little bit. Being from Pittsburgh, what was it like to hear your name called by the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Everything, right? Everything. It was, you know, I was a maniacal fan growing up. You know, I loved watching the black and gold every week with my dad, with my family. And, you know, those are like dream come true type situations. You never really see too many guys get drafted to their hometown. And that was a situation where it happened. On the flip side, you know, it was the best thing that ever could have happened in terms of, you know, it put me in front of Bruce Arians, it put me in front of Harold Goodwin and a lot of the guys who ended up being my coaches most of my career. And fortunately for me, like, I was able to kind of, you know, ride along that journey with those guys. It was also one of the worst things that could have happened to me because, you know, I'm back at home. I'm getting pulled and tugged on from every direction, friends, family. I know everybody everywhere I went in terms of a restaurant. People knew who I was. And I was feeling it, man. I really was. It was one of the things where I was like, man, I love this, you know. And it almost took away my focus from football, and you know, I had it in a different direction. There was just way too many distractions for me. So, you know, when I had the opportunity to sign back with Pittsburgh after my first year, you know, I'm on a practice squad the first year there, and they offered me a contract to come back after that year, and I signed with Philly. Philly was interested in me from the year before, and honestly, for me, the best decision for my career moving on the trajectory that it did was going to Philadelphia and getting out of Pittsburgh.
It's interesting that you say that. I'm a fan of Pat McAfee's show, which I know you're a frequent on there. I remember one episode he was talking about how he, like, getting passed on by Pittsburgh was like the best thing that ever happened to him. So it's interesting to hear that you, like, experienced that.
I did, and him and I have had plenty of conversations about that. And I think probably part of his reasoning on that is probably we're two pretty similar people. We both enjoy life. We both enjoyed, like to go out and party when we were younger, and so it was just a situation that wasn't the best and most ideal situation for me at that time, and Lord knows it wouldn't have been for him either. So, him getting to Indianapolis and kind of carving his niche there, and me kind of getting away and going to different cities and carving my niche there, and those were probably two of the best stories you can kind of say about that in terms of getting away from home.
I got my Pat McAfee shirt on under.
So I love it. The allegedly.
I knew you'd love that. Yeah, allegedly.
Yeah, there it is.
So you mentioned a little bit how you bounced around during the beginning of your career. You played for several different teams with you snapped to quite the list of quarterbacks, including Roethlisberger, Michael Vick, Andrew Luck, Flacco, Carson Palmer, Kyler Murray, and then obviously last year Tom Brady. What was it like playing for some of those people? Obviously some of them are, future Hall of Famers.
Yeah, I mean, I am beyond grateful for not only the opportunities to snap the football to them, but to also learn from all those guys. They all kind of taught me something different in their own ways. More so the latter part of my career, just in terms of the games that I was starting with, a lot of these guys. And, I played a lot of football with Carson Palmer, and I think the world of him as a human. I think the world of him as a quarterback. And, obviously, we see what Kyler Murray's doing. He's doing some special things on the field. He's a supreme talent, freakish athlete. Tom's the greatest of all time, and there's in every facet, right? And he's, just the way he goes about his business from Monday to Sunday, and watching him kind of operate and kind of put his little thumbprint on the game plan and switch this or see this differently and add this and subtract that. And and just to kind of watch him work. I mean, he's 44, 45. I don't know how old he is at this point, but he never takes a practice off. He's always out there Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. He's always working. He likes being out there with the guys. He likes seeing things. And, so from that aspect, I've been fortunate to play with some of the greatest quarterbacks that will ever live, honestly.
So I have a follow-up here just about Tom Brady. Like I said, growing up Pittsburgh's fan, I hated Tom Brady. Like every Pittsburgh fan, he was the worst. But since he left, he is like potentially the most likable guy. Is he as cool in real life? I know you have to say this because work with him, but is he as cool of a guy as he appears to be on social media? Because it pains me how much I want to like him.
He's awesome. I mean, he really is. I mean, he's one of the guys, man. He tells stories. He hangs with the boys. He's great on the field. He's great off the field. He's so impressive whenever any new guy. I mean, that was one of the most impressive things that I'll remember about last year is obviously there was a lot of coaches on that staff that were big fans of mine, right? So I'm sure they probably said something, hey, this AQ Shipley guy, we're signing him, towards the end of training camp, you'll love him. He's great, whatever. He doesn't need to do what he does, right? And so at the end of the day, I sign. I go through my little 5-day hold because of the COVID stuff. And my first day I show up at, it's like the last week of training camp. I show up, I grab my stuff in the equipment room. I go into the locker room. He's the first guy that comes over to me. Hey, Q, I'm Tom. Nice to meet you. Heard a lot of great things about you. Can't wait to work with you. And it's he doesn't need to do that, and I've watched him do it time and time again. Richard Sherman comes in, this guy comes in, that guy comes in. It's just, he goes over, introduces himself. I mean, he's spot on from a human and from an athlete.
So while you're not our first Super Bowl champion guest, we've also had Jordan Hill and Franco Harris on the show, but you're our most recent. So what was it like winning the Super Bowl last season?
Can't describe it. I mean, it's something, I dreamed of as a little kid. It's something that I played a long time on a lot of really good football teams. I got close a couple times. I was in Indianapolis in 2014 when we lost in the AFC Championship. following year, I'm in Arizona, and we lose in the NFC Championship to Carolina, and Carolina goes on to lose to Denver, I think, in the Super Bowl. But, so I go back-to-back years being close but no cigar, and then, then I have a stretch run out in Arizona where, we had 3 pretty poor years in a row. I think it was, I don't know. And I'm like sitting there and I'm like, man, I don't think this is going to happen. And then the COVID thing hits, and I was just kind of waiting for an opportunity. I had some offers early on in free agency that were, let's just say, teams that I knew wouldn't be contenders. And I told my wife, and she was like freaking out because I'm sitting there and it's July and I still hadn't signed, even though these offers are kind of on the table. And I'm like, I'm waiting. She's like, what if you don't? What if a contender doesn't come and they pull these offers and you don't have a job? I'm like, I'm fine being done if that's the case. I want to go to a place that I know can win. And I got a call kind of late in the process. I knew San Fran was interested in bringing me in on a workout, and I knew they had a talented team. They were coming off the Super Bowl the year before. Now, unfortunately for them, they caught the injury bug that last year and, didn't have a great year. But that was kind of it, where I was like, okay, cool. Like, there's a contender here. And I was hoping Tampa would come in. And once San Fran kind of showed some interest, then Tampa came in with the offer. And I was like, okay, cool. Now this is a great opportunity for me to go. And then, we're sitting at 7-5 at the bye week. And I'm like, picked a great team. I know we got an opportunity here, but we got to get rolling if we want this thing to do. And then, obviously something magical happened, and we reeled off eight in a row, I think it was, and hoisted it, which was awesome. And then, you get the ring this summer. It was the coolest experience in the world.
Can you tell us a bit about the transition from playing to coaching and just what that experience has been like this year?
It's completely different. I'll tell you that much. Every Sunday I walk out on that field and I miss playing. I promise you that. There's no feeling in the world that can simulate the feeling that I felt from the time I was 18 till the time I was 35. So for 17 years of my life, on a Saturday or Sunday, I walked out in front of a lot of people and, performed in front of a lot of people. And there's just no feeling that can simulate that. And, it was one of those deals where, it just became part of the norm now. That's my new career is coaching right now. So it became part of the norm where I didn't really even think about it until we went Sunday night up to New England, Brady's return back to Foxborough. And I'm sitting there watching this pregame atmosphere. And I'm like, man, I wish I was suiting up for this game. Right. That was kind of the first time where it was one of those things where I was like, man, I really wish I was playing in this one. So, but there is a flip side, right? I mean, I do enjoy kind of always looked at myself as a coach on the field. I think coaches looked at me from that standpoint. They trusted me. They knew that I would get guys always on the right page. They knew I saw the game from that standpoint, and I was smart enough to kind of see the game from that standpoint. So, being able to work with, in my opinion, the top offensive lineman or the top offensive line as a group in the league, and day in and day out, week in and week out, and just kind of work with them from a technique standpoint, just kind of give little nuggets that, I see to some of these guys. It's been rewarding, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, you've had some serious injuries before, including a torn ACL. How do you mentally come back from something like that?
That's the one thing I really appreciate about. I don't necessarily know if you want to call it this. I mean, at the end of the day, I think if you're a professional athlete, I would consider everybody an elite athlete. At that level, I would consider any pro athlete or military person an elite athlete or elite mindset, right? And so, I think anybody that has ever gotten to that level has sacrificed a lot. They have, not gone to the party when all their friends have gone to the party. They have taken time away from, so many other things to sacrifice for the greater good of what they're trying to get accomplished from an individual standpoint. You can call it selfish, you can call it is what it is. But at the end of the day, in order to get to this level, you have to be driven like that. And so many times people get injured at this level, regardless of what sport you're playing. And so from that standpoint, you have to be like that again and be driven to get back to that same point. And so for me, that's what it was. I took about a week and felt sorry for myself, probably up until I got my surgery. And, I have a mindset that my last play was not going to be during a practice in August in Arizona when I tear my ACL. That was not going to be the last time I stepped on a National Football League field. And for me, that was very easy to come back from a mindset standpoint. Now, there were some hard times, don't get me wrong, but I think one particular text message really kind of got me rolling early on in the process. I got a great text message from Larry Fitzgerald, and it was something along the lines of like, "Hey man, like take a week, feel sorry for yourself, and then get back to that Pittsburgh mindset of, picking up your lunch pail, putting on your hard hat, get back to work, and come back stronger than you ever have." Right, and that was kind of a great text message to get. And then I think like the first preseason game, I got a text from him and all the boys in the locker room like, "Hey, Mish, can't wait to see you back next year." And then I re-signed like shortly thereafter that, and I was like, all right, there's not a chance in hell I'm not coming back from this thing and starting week 1 next year. Not a chance. And ended up coming back and starting week 1, played every single snap that season. So, yeah, I think I went on a tangent there, but that's kind of the roundabout way. Now the next one, I would have came back from it if they would have let me, but I get the spinal cord injury last year, and it was you got lucky to walk away from this one. You might as well continue to keep walking away from this one. So that was it for me.
As a player, how do you come back from a loss like Penn State just suffered against Illinois last week?
Oh, you had to go there, huh? That's a tough one. Those ones are tough ones to come back from, but you don't really have you don't have a choice, right? Now, I know you got 3 hard games here in a row. Tough places to play. I think it's at Ohio State, right? I think you're home against Michigan, maybe.
Yep.
And then at Michigan State. Is that
Yep.
kind of that? Okay, so
10 to finish out the season.
Yeah, so they got 3 tough ones coming up here down the road, and you just got to exactly have that same mindset that I just talked about. You got to be here. You got to, there's going to be a lot of people saying things in the papers. You got to be here. You got to look at I don't know how many guys are in a locker room in college anymore, 110, I don't know, maybe 115 or so. And plus coaches, you're looking at 130 or so. Those 130 guys are going to be the only people to believe and that you're going to win this game this week. And so those are the guys you got to lean on throughout the week. Those are the guys that you got to have conversations with, and you got to be honest with yourself. You got to sit there and look at why did we lose when we were 24-point favorites to Illinois. And it may be a tough thing. It may be, hey, maybe something's not working from a coaching standpoint or a player standpoint. I don't care who it is, but at some point, you got to have some tough conversations. You got to be honest with yourself, and you got to figure out what isn't working and what is working. And you got to get better at the things that are working. You got to figure out how to get better at the things that aren't working. Right. And that's the only thing that you can do moving forward. And that's the approach those guys got to take.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how they bounce back from it. I'm looking forward to it. That game was hard to watch.
Tough
Yeah,
to watch.
terrible. I mean, I shoot for our Onward State, so I was down on the field, and it was just like watching grown men cry is hard. You know what I mean? Like after a loss like that, you can tell how much they care about it, and it was just like it made me sad more than just the game itself. But yeah.
Listen, the game's changed. The game's changed a lot. I will say that the game has changed. The college game has changed a lot since I played. I mean, when I played, it was run the ball a lot, right? And now, of the college game, you don't run the ball a lot. And the teams that do run the ball a lot have a chance. And I'm not saying that, but like the formula you can sit here and say whatever you want about the spreading it out and doing whatever people are doing at the college game, but the formula still remains the same, and it always will remain the same. You got to run the ball. You got to stop the run. And that's how you win the game, period. We couldn't run the ball. We couldn't stop the run. You're going to be in a dogfight, regardless of how much better you are than that Illinois team. It's a simple game when it comes down to that.
Yep, enough said. So we mentioned Pat earlier. You actually host a podcast of your own, That's Hockey Talk, through his company with Moraldo, Gumpy, and Mike Rupp. When did you really become into hockey, and how did that opportunity to have a talk show talking all about hockey, how did that come about?
Yeah, so it was kind of towards the latter stages of my career, maybe year 8 or 9 or so. It was right around the time that he retired, and I started going on his show quite a bit as an interview, as a guest, and I was getting some really good feedback. I mean, some of the replies and mentions I was getting on social media, I was like, "Hey, this guy's hilarious. We need this guy more on your show." So Pat started kind of reaching out to me. He's like, "Listen, like the fans love you, man." He's like, "I don't know, like you're great when you come on the show. You're great, and so I don't know if you have any interest in doing this when you're done, but if you do, you got to start kind of getting in the routine, or at least getting some experience in being able to host." And at that time, he knew I was a big hockey guy. And to answer the question, how'd I get into it? Growing up in Pittsburgh, in the early 90s, it's a great time to be a Pittsburgh Penguin fan, right? So I love it. And so, watching Lemieux and Yager and Ronnie Francis and Tommy Barrasso and all those guys growing up with my dad, seeing all that stuff, I just became a fan. I was playing cul-de-sac hockey with the boys in the neighborhood and, doing all that stuff. And so just kind of always became a big fan. Well, then, I'm with the Steelers actually in 2009 when they win the Cup against Detroit, and, got to be a part of the city when that whole thing went down. And, then, Crosby. So granted, I've been very fortunate to grow up in a town where, we've been very good at hockey with two of the best players to ever live. Right. And so Hockey Town, right? Exactly. So, I've been fortunate for that. And that it also, I grew to enjoy watching it. Well, anyway, so that's kind of how I got into hockey. And then, so he knew I was a hockey guy. Moraldo used to play hockey. And so he was like, "Why don't you and Nick kind of do a spinoff off our show under our umbrella and kind of do this hockey thing and at least get you used to kind of, being a host, going back and forth one-on-one, get used to interviewing some guys if you can get some interviews." He's like, "We'll pub it a little bit under our umbrella to help you guys get some listeners and go from there." And it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun. I like watching it, and it's been great too for me being on the West Coast, because now I get to see all the West Coast games. When I've been in Phoenix all those years, I'm catching all the Vegas Knights, the San Jose Sharks, the LA Kings games, the Phoenix Coyotes games, right? Like all those games when those guys are all going to bed. So now we can kind of still talk about the East Coast stuff that I'm catching at 4 p.m. out on the West Coast. Those guys go to bed. Now I can fill them in on all the West Coast stuff. So it's been a good back and forth between us. And I just felt like coaching this year, I had to kind of step away. But as soon as the season's over, I'm going to hop back on with those guys. I'm looking forward to getting on with Rupper. He's been a great addition.
You've been up here to Penn State hockey yet?
I haven't. That's the funny thing, man. They've been so good and such a cool atmosphere from what I've been told. But I'm looking forward to it. My wife's never actually been to Penn State, and so I'm really looking forward to it. I got two young girls now. I got a 3-year-old and a 15-month-old, and looking forward to kind of getting all the girls back to Penn State and seeing kind of what I experienced from a fan standpoint. Getting back for a college football game, getting back for a hockey game, taking them to a women's volleyball game or, a men's wrestling match. I mean, the atmosphere is second to none. I'll say that till the day I die from any college atmosphere on every one of those sports I just named.
AQ, we got one more question for you that we ask all our guests. We appreciate you coming on.
Do you have any advice for college students?
Enjoy the hell out of it. Enjoy the hell out of the time. Take advantage of it. Learn as much as you can. I'll say this, just like any college student, while you're in college, before you get out, you think you got it all figured out. the real world will chew you up and spit you out. And that's usually when you figure things out. And, I've been cut from teams. I thought I had it all figured out. I thought I was going to have the same smooth sailing ride I had, in college, and get to the NFL. I've been fired 3 times. I've been traded once. There's all these little ups and downs and ebbs and flows that you're going to go through. And all those unique experiences will only mold you along the way. So when you don't have to worry about any of those real life experiences, and all you got to do is get up and go to class and learn, be a sponge, soak it up, enjoy the hell out of the weekends, enjoy the hell out of the nights that you go out and party, and enjoy the hell out of that town. Because when it's time to grow up, it's time to grow up. And like I said, it's going to be a roller coaster. So, yeah, I think that's the best advice.
Ladies and gentlemen, AQ Shipley, thank you so much for coming on, AQ.
Pleasure is mine. Appreciate it, guys.
All right, that was our conversation with Super Bowl champion and Penn State alum AQ Shipley. Cool conversation. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Right now, we're going to chat briefly about we're going to try to keep it brief.
We'll try, yeah.
We're going to talk about football for a little bit. We got Connor Kraus joining us. Connor, how are you?
Good. How's it going, Sam?
Good, man.
Good.
Like AQ said, kind of a rough game. Let's talk about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was tough to watch. I know you were on the field. I was in the front row. It's just one of those games that it happens far too often under James Franklin. They come out, lose to a good team, like they lost to Iowa 2 weeks ago, but they're playing a far inferior opponent in Illinois, and they just get grinded out and beat down slowly. I mean, the defense gave up, let's see here, 395 yards with over 360 on the ground. That just is inexcusable. It was the same stretch play over and over and over, right up the left side. They had a 10-man front. Like it's just stuff that, given 2 weeks to prepare for, should have been super easy to limit, in my mind.
Yeah, it was an embarrassment. I mean, I've been to probably over 100 Penn State games in my life, and that might have been the worst one. And I've been to some bad ones.
Yeah. The other thing, too, I mean, it's not just the defense. They played their hearts out. They only gave up 10 points. And in this day and age in college football, if you only give up 10 points in a game, you shouldn't be at fault for the loss. I mean, the offense was horrific. They only had 62 rushing yards and 29 attempts for 2.1 yards a carry against the top 3 worst rush defense in the Big Ten. Sean Clifford was clearly hurt, and that was evident on the first drive. On third down in that drive, he took a sack. He was rolling out to his left, and he didn't expose his ribs. He could have thrown it to a wide-open Theo Johnson, but he held onto the ball instead. And from that point forward, people could clearly see that he wasn't himself.
Yeah, I mean, he was injured. He wasn't 100%. You see that all the time in sports. You see that all the time, especially with a quarterback that means as much to their team as he does. Real quick, before we talk about overtime, let's chat briefly. I just want your take on whether he should have played or not, and if the outcome would have been different if Taquan Roberson would have played.
Yeah, I think it's pretty evident that a big part of Penn State's offense is the quarterback run. If the quarterback play breaks down, the quarterback can scramble. They don't have a running attack, so that is their rushing attack this season. So I think if Taquan played, it would certainly open up the offense a little bit. And I would have liked to see him start drives outside of his own 10, like what happened in Iowa. So I don't think Sean Clifford should have played. I think Taquan should have played. I think at a program like Penn State of that caliber, your healthy number 2 guy has to be better than your hurt number 1. And he also had 2 weeks to prepare. The coaches had 2 weeks to prepare him. So I think that's a big issue and a big glaring question mark for Penn State's depth.
Like AQ said, if you can't get the run game started, it doesn't matter how much better your team is. And
exactly.
That was so evident. In our reactions, me and Pegs and Ryan and Gabe, we talked about, just if Penn State would have played Roberson, he could have just been a spark that got that offense going.
Yeah.
Whether it was he could have thrown it more than 25 yards down the field, or he could get the RPO going.
Totally agree.
Yeah, my thing was, I think that they were anticipating going up 28-0 in the halfway through the first, and they would have pulled them out at that point. They just never got to that point. If I were the coaches, that's what my plan would have been, because you don't want Sean going into Ohio State on 2.5 weeks of rest.
Right. Well, and it's not like Sean Clifford went out there and gashed them through the air anyway. He threw for 165 yards, and I could be wrong, but I think a healthy Taquan Roberson could throw for about that many yards against the worst passing defense in the Big Ten. Again, based on what we saw at Iowa, that could be a little different, but that was a hostile environment. This was at home, a noon kick. He could have got a couple drives going, carried some momentum into the latter half of the first quarter, but I just don't see how his ability could have been worse than Clifford at the time.
Couldn't agree more. Embarrassing during regulation, went into overtime. College rules, obviously, you do two normal, and then you do touchdown 2-point, and then it's 2-point the rest of the way.
Yeah, so that's new for this year. In my opinion, I didn't really like it. I think you could play at least 3 to 5 regular overtimes before trading 2-point conversions. I think it's exciting, but as far as that game went, it was about the least exciting overtime you could ever imagine.
It was pretty electric in there, though.
It was all right, but like
If they
both
would've-
teams couldn't punch it in from 3 yards. That's pretty embarrassing and sad in my opinion. But
It was awful. There were obviously missed opportunities. Jaquan had a missed opportunity.
Yep.
Sean Clifford had a little Philly special that he dropped.
yeah, one thing I will say about that throw,
Yeah.
it was behind him.
You're right.
Again, Tyler Warren had pressure in his face, but
Hey,
that
if you
could have
practice
sealed
that,
it.
If you practice that and you're going to throw it to your quarterback, you better make damn sure your quarterback can catch.
Oh, I agree. And I don't know if throwing it to your hurt quarterback is the best move either.
No, terrible move. I mean, the fact that they wouldn't run him all game and then they're going to throw it to him in the overtime, granted, he was wide open.
Right.
There was no one near him. But anyways, overtime, 9th overtime, record game, Illinois,
Yeah, I mean,
they got the final 2-point conversion. They got the win.
I think the Big Ten's the only conference where a game could go that long and the final score could be 20-18. If it was a 9 overtime Big 12 game, the score could have been in the 70s or 80s. But, that's just the way the afternoon was, pretty sluggish. Penn State, the thing about them after losses, they just look uninspired, which is pretty sad because the way the playoff works, if you drop 1, you're not completely out, but if you drop 2, you are. So losing 2 in a row basically derailed Penn State's entire season with their biggest game on the schedule on Saturday.
Yeah, it is worth mentioning that nearly every team, except for sometimes the national champion that goes undefeated, nearly every team has a fluke loss. And Iowa was not our fluke loss.
Mm-mm.
Iowa was 2.5-point favorites. They were ranked higher than us. Iowa was not our fluke loss. This was our fluke loss. Granted, if Iowa didn't happen and this loss happened, we still would be in my opinion, CFP contention. I just can't imagine at this point, even if we win out, we could still be in the Big Ten championship and win.
Right, but
I mean,
but based on what we saw on Saturday,
based on what we saw, that probably won't happen. But at the same time, we win the Big Ten championship. I still don't think Penn State's making it in because they had this loss.
Yeah, that's tough to
It's a
say.
deal
There'd
breaker.
have to be a lot of shakeup. I think a 2-loss Penn State team that wins the Big Ten championship with wins over Ohio State, Michigan, and Michigan State gets in over a 1-loss Cincinnati if they drop one to SMU later in the season. But that's so far from reality right now. I don't know if it's worth touching
Fair
upon.
enough. I still think this team's fantastic, but I do think that while the Sean Clifford injury really hampered the offense, I think that the biggest issue was P.J. Mustafa and the gap he left on the defense.
Totally.
You noticed it on every single play.
They went to his gap the entire game. Chase Brown had over 260 yards rushing, 6 yards of carry. There were multiple drives. He had 27-yard rushes on the same drive. I mean, in the middle of the second quarter, they had a 15-play drive that was nearly 7 minutes long. Against Penn State's defense, that's just inexcusable.
And it's a killer. That kills your defense. Anyways, let's move on. We got Ohio State in Columbus this weekend.
Yeah.
I won't be there.
Yeah, neither will I. I'm not making the trek for this one.
I would love to make the trek. I just won't be.
Yeah, I'm excited for it though. I think Penn State as an 18.5-point underdog is pretty disrespectful. I think this team is better than that. But Ohio State's rolling. They look like the number 2 team in the country right now. C.J. Stroud is second in the conference in passing. He's thrown for 1,965 yards, 327 per game, and 22 touchdowns. So he's balling right now.
Yeah.
Rushing attack, more of the same. Third in the conference in rushing, 8.8 yards a carry. So this is going to be another tough test for Penn State's defense. But again, I'm not sure if Ohio State can hang over 28 points on them. So it's all up to if Sean Clifford's healthy, if we can put enough points on them, in my opinion.
Yeah.
They're really good. I mean, they beat Indiana by almost 50 points. So
We only beat them by 24.
yeah.
All right. I don't really want to talk too much more about this upcoming game. There's just not that much to talk about. I
Yeah,
don't want to talk
people know.
about Illinois anymore, so let's get to score predictions.
Yeah, so I think Penn State will drop a third one in a row, sadly. I'm going to say Ohio State wins it 34-17. Penn State keeps it tight for a little bit, but they end up running away with it in the second half. I just don't see how the same team that lost to Illinois last week can go into Columbus and pull one out.
It's fair. That's fair. James Franklin said on Tuesday in his press conference, he said Sean's going to be 100% this week. If not, he'll be very close. I think they're pissed off. I think they're mad.
You calling for a win?
29-27 Penn State.
Wow. I would love
And
I would
I
love
think
that.
that they're going to kick a game-winning field goal, and it's going to be Jordan Stout because I think that they will fear so much. Oh, I was going to say they would go for 2, tied or down 1, go for 2 to get the win at the end because they're scared of overtime. But I'm going to go 29-27 Penn State.
Honestly, if that situation happened, if Penn State had a go-ahead touchdown but they needed the 2-point conversion to win, I would love it at this point of the season if they go for the 2-point conversion.
That's what you do.
I mean, you have 2 losses already. Sure, taking Ohio State to overtime would be great, but we know how Penn State's dropped games to Ohio State in overtime before. Go for the win. The playoff is pretty much out of the question. Go for your pride. Go for the recruiting battle. Win the game on a 2-yard play.
Yep, we'll see what happens. That might be naive and just me being a fan. Maybe optimistic of me, but hey, I'm an optimistic guy sometimes. All right. Lastly, let's talk a little bit about James Franklin. What the hell is going on with this guy?
Yeah, so it was reported today that James Franklin's agent, he dropped him in the summer and signed with a new one. And obviously with rumors swirling around his interest in USC and LSU, that's big news in the middle of the season. But according to Franklin, it's not new, so people shouldn't panic. But Will Pegler actually wrote an article yesterday about how Franklin's cloudy commitment doesn't help the team, and I totally agree. I think we've seen Jimbo Fisher and Mike Tomlin totally denounce rumors about these two schools. I don't know why Franklin won't come out and say the same thing. I understand he wants leverage, but he can only get so much.
Yeah, Tomlin, that was awesome.
Yeah, never say never, but never.
Never say never, but never. Yeah, we love Mike Tomlin. Yeah, I mean, I want to say he's coming back, but he might be gone.
I think he will. I mean, he's from Pennsylvania. He's been committed to this program. But if you are coming back, then don't lead us on. Don't let your rumors turn into losses, because that's what at the end of the day.
Play us, James.
Yeah, seriously. So it's frustrating, especially how often he talks about distractions clouding the team. He's the bigger issue as of right now. So it is frustrating to watch, but hopefully they can clear it up.
Yep. If James Franklin leaves, who would you like to see come in? This is very hypothetical and in the future, but I have 2 names in my brain that I would.
The person I would like to see the most is Matt Rule. I don't think it'll happen. I don't think he would come from Carolina or the NFL money. The person who I think would most likely get the job is Brent Pry.
Okay, those are both great choices. I didn't consider Brent Pry.
Yeah, I mean, he's from Altoona.
That would be a huge. That would.
I
think it's a little out of his.
I think so too. I think he would be here forever though if he gets that job.
Well, it will be the biggest job he ever gets.
Oh, 100%.
Matt Rule, if things don't work out with the Panthers and they fire him, I mean, he's been there, this is his third year?
It's his third year.
Yeah. And he's a state college guy.
Yeah, he played for Joe Paterno.
And he grew up in state college. Yeah.
Grew up in state college, played linebacker here, so it's definitely a dream job for him. But being in the NFL, it's a lot easier job. You don't have to recruit. You don't have to play the PR guy.
I think he's a college coach.
He is.
You see the college coaches and you see the NFL coaches. You see the Urban Meyers and the Mike Tomlins and the differences that they have between each other. I think he's a college coach.
I mean, or from the same coaching tree, you go out to Carolina, you get Joe Brady, who was a grad assistant here.
Yep.
Young new name that could recruit. I think that would be pretty cool too.
He's getting talked about as well for LSU.
Yeah, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
but we'll see. Two names I would like to see: Joe Moorhead, Bill O'Brien, both OCs right now, kind of lighting it up on their squads. Both have been at Penn State.
I don't
That's
think
just as a fan.
I don't think O'Brien would ever come back. He had his fair share of issues with the community here, so I don't know. I would like to see it, but I don't think I don't think he's bringing his family back to State College. I love him too, but he's on record to say some pretty negative things about the Paterno people and.
Well, I don't think that. I think the main reason O'Brien wouldn't come back is mostly just like he had his time in Penn State was amazing, and why tarnish it with trying to do more?
Right, and for him, it was always going to be a stepping stone job. He was going to be the one to bridge the gap between Paterno and the heir apparent. So that's what he did, and he did a great job. So I don't think he's coming back.
Fantastic job, best coach in my lifetime. All right,
cool.
Thanks, Connor.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Sam. Hopefully, enjoy your weekend from home. I will too. Hopefully, we'll.
Hey, maybe we can hang out.
Yeah, we'll get a lucky seat on the
College.
couch. We'll pretend like we're on the field, and maybe our lucky charm will be staying home for once.
Yeah, I'll be watching it from the couch. I'm excited.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you.
That was another episode of Podward State. It's a pretty good one, I think. We had a bye week last week, pod bye week. So fun to be back. It was needed.
Anyways, yeah, really cool conversation with AQ. He had to reschedule bye week for us. It was really nice. I enjoyed it.
Podcation.
Yeah, a little podcation. Yeah, we talked a little bit about some headlines, what's going on in the community around Penn State, and a little football chat. Football is getting harder to talk about. But whatever. There's bigger things in the world. Connor needs kidney. Not Connor Krause. For our listeners out there, not Connor Krause. That's a story for another time. All right. Enter Sandman. Cool, man. Grace, Halloween costume?
I have two.
Yeah.
I'm going to be... I guess I don't know which one. The twins from The Parent Trap, Hallie and Annie. Me and my roommate are being them in their little camp uniforms. And
I like that.
Oh, and I'm being Cake Boss.
Nice. Classic.
That one's fun. I'm excited. I have to memorize a little quote of his.
Okay.
But like a long quote.
Oh.
He says, Cousin Anthony.
He always says, and they went wild. I brought it in. They all went wild.
We're
Every
gonna
single
make a
time.
great cake.
He always goes, and everybody went crazy. And it was like, and it shows them, and they're all like, oh,
It's
cool
like it's like a
cake.
bat mitzvah. They're like, wow.
They're like, wow, cool cake. And he's like, they're going wild. That's fun.
Yeah.
I'm gonna. I did shave my to a goatee because I knew AQ Shipley was coming on. He's got a killer goatee. Unfortunately, he made no comment about it. But I think that this fits pretty good to go as James Franklin. Maybe.
Sure.
Yeah. I also have been told I should go as the Lorax. So I might just wear an orange shirt and shave just a mustache.
What color like hair does Lorax have? Is it orange?
Orange, but I'm not dyeing anything.
You should.
I've said
That'd
this
be funny.
before. I'm not huge with Halloween, but I also will. I'm not going to show up to a party with no outfit on.
Yeah, then you'll be.
Then I'm just like.
Yeah, you're like a Halloween like
Yeah,
humbug.
I don't want to be that.
Yeah. Then everyone thinks that you're doing it for attention, but you really don't want attention, and then it's just
it's
just weird.
Yeah, it's weird, and
Yeah.
so I'll just be the Lorax, and
Yeah.
no one will blink an eye.
Yeah, I feel like that Lorax is a stretch. I think. I think that's like you might have to like explain that a little bit.
if they'll be like, "What are you?" and I'll just say Lorax.
You said last time that you just say guess and then whatever they say. That's, I think, a good strategy.
Yeah. James Franklin will be easier.
Because whatever they guess, they're
I'll just
probably
wear a Penn State
excited about
shirt.
it.
Yeah.
Then they'll like it because it was the first thing they thought of.
And they'll be like, "Oh, you actually look like
Yeah.
the Lorax."
Yeah,
because
and then
you
maybe
have
you'll win
mustache
like
and
a
you're fat."
costume. You'll win like a costume contest.
Yeah, maybe.
Everyone thinks you're something different.
All right. Thanks, Grace. It's been another episode of Podward State. My name is Sam Brungo.
Grace Cunningham.
Have a good weekend, guys. Be safe. Have fun.
Adios.